FL Studio is a digital audio workstation that has been at the forefront of electronic music production for over a decade. With its powerful features and intuitive interface, nowadays FL Studio is a completely capable DAW. But this was not always the case. FL Studio has changed a lot over its development. Today I will be diving deep into the history of FL Studio to discover how we got from this to this. Before we can talk about FL Studio, we have to talk about ImageLine, the actual company that makes FL Studio. ImageLine was founded in 1994 by Jean-Marie Canny and Frank Van Buysen, long before they ever had the idea of making music production software. They initially spent time developing software used in stock market trading, but decided that was too boring, so they branched off into video games, creating the company we now know as ImageLine. ImageLine's first attempt to break into the market was a clone of Tetris that they turned into an adult video game. Not exactly sure how that would work, but it's a shocker that it didn't turn into the major success that FL Studio did. Apparently, however, it was popular enough for them to keep creating video games all the way up until the Da Vinci contest is where the story really starts to get interesting. It's the late 1990s, and around this time, ImageLine doesn't have a lot of cash to spare, and computers are extremely expensive, a laptop being about $5,000 to $10,000. As luck would have it though, IBM had recently proposed a contest called Da Vinci. There's not much about this online, but as far as I can tell, IBM held the Da Vinci contest to recognize the best new software applications developed using their technology. The first prize for this contest was a laptop with full-color display. ImageLine really needed a technology upgrade, but they didn't have anything using the technology that IBM had made. Seeing that it couldn't hurt, they decided to rework an old game to fit the contest criteria, but to their surprise, it worked. They won the contest in the multimedia category. Not the games category, however. The person who beat them out in the games category was none other than Didier Dambrin, the future creator of FL Studio. Okay, so side note, this is not Didier Dambrin. This is Scott Fisher. I did a Google search for Didier Dambrin and got like 3 different images, and I kinda just picked one.
Choose your character.
And then way too late decided that I was actually gonna research if that really was him, because all of the images I got were different. And then I image searched it, and then I found a news article with that image. And then I also found a LinkedIn page for Scott Fisher, the COO at ImageLine Software. But since I already did a crap ton of editing with this picture, and I don't feel like going back and redoing it, and I also think it's kind of funny, we're just gonna go with it. This is what he actually looks like. I think. I don't know for a fact. There's not much about this guy online. But, yeah. After Didier won not only in the games category, but the overall prize as well, ImageLine saw the talent he had clear as day, and after taking a trip to the USA to collect their prize, ImageLine somehow managed to convince Didier to join their team. At this point, Didier and the rest of the ImageLine team were still focused on game development. After one more failed adult game, Jean decided he didn't like the reputation his company was getting, and I imagine he didn't appreciate the lack of income either, so they buckled down and switched gears to regular video games. I know, you thought I was gonna say that they switched to music production software, but actually, at this point they were still focused on video games. Around that time, however, Didier was getting really into music software, like Rebirth 338, a software synthesizer, and Hammerhead, a drum machine. He fell in love with them and desperately wanted a way to integrate them both into one seamless application. So began the development of FL Studio. Fruity Loops 1 was an extremely bare-bones software. So bare-bones, in fact, that when Didier dropped Fruity Loops on Jean's desk, he told him it wasn't a good fit with the lineup of software they currently had, mainly being web tools and invoicing software. However, they did put a demo up for download on their website. Shortly after that, downloads for Fruity Loops skyrocketed, and this was impossible not to notice because their servers at the time were having trouble handling all of the requests to download this demo. Unfortunately for ImageLine, these early years were rough, as most people were downloading the demo and they had very little sales. They used up so much bandwidth it was troublesome to find someone to host them. Not to mention, they had the policy of lifetime free updates to the software. Luckily, they found someone to host their servers and even got contracted to make a music software for Mattel, and made some much needed money. Following this, things began to look upwards for ImageLine. With Fruity Loops, they had finally made their big break. This success motivated Didier to start developing Fruity Loops into a full-fledged DAW. Throughout the development of FL Studio 2, it's obvious the devs were mainly focused on adding core features, adding things like live recording, basic MIDI inputs, and an early version of the playlist. They created the now famous FLP file format for saving projects, pitch bend, automated filters, delays, reverbs, tons of... Skip to 2001. Fruity Loops Studio 3 is out, and over the next 2 years they added the MIDI roll, MIDI export, logarithmic decay on envelopes, internal controllers, tons of better mapping support, Project Bone exports, granulizer, stereo enhancer, Fruity Delay 2, Fruity Chorus, which would be the only default chorus in Fruity Loops for 2 decades. Wait, did I say Fruity Loops? Fruity Loops. FL Studio, FL Studio, FL Studio, Kellogg's Fruit Loops. Oh. So honestly, this one's not that interesting, just your classic case of corporate pettiness, so I'll keep it quick. To protect consumers from needless confusion, trademark law allows you to make a trademark with the same name as another product, but only if you can make a case that it's a distinctively different product or service. I think we can both agree that music production software and unhealthy sugar cereal are 2 very different products. However, Kellogg's didn't think so, and decided that because they had released CDs with their cereals as a prize, that they were officially in the software industry, and therefore decided to challenge ImageLine's trademark. Rather than fight a megacorporation in court for years over a name that's arguably bad anyway, ImageLine chose to change their name to FL Studio. Since then, people still call it both Fruity Loops and FL Studio, although the official name of the product is FL Studio. Throughout the next few updates, FL Studio continued to see tons of features and bug fixes, and continued gaining popularity. They added things like automation clips, Fruity Pad Controller, and even Citrus. FL Studio was quickly becoming a DAW capable of making serious music, and it was starting to become obvious. In the fall of 2007, Soulja Boy's Crank Dat charted #1 for 7 weeks. The insane part about it is that this song was made using only FL Studio default sounds in, quote, about 10 minutes, according to Soulja Boy.
Oh, damn. Swag, kush, swag.
In fact, if you have FL Studio, which I'd assume you do because you're watching this video, you have the samples that Soulja Boy used to make Crank Dat. This, in my mind, is when FL Studio began to truly be considered a fully fledged DAW. It was not only capable, but it had been an integral part of what was, like it or not, an incredibly popular song. It's the year 2008. FL Studio is now 10 years old, and to celebrate, ImageLine launches FL Studio 8. They add SliceX, SynthMaker, which you could use Wii remotes to control? I don't know, it's weird. It looks like an early version of Patcher. The Slip tool, plug-in thumbnails, one-click recording, stereo waveform display, scroll wheel support in all menus, and a score logging feature that remembers everything you've played whether you've recorded it or not, and allows you to put something you just played into your song without recording. FL Studio is finally up there with the big boys, but better yet, constantly kept developing their software, taking user feedback, and refining the software based off of it. This is why I love FL Studio. It's incredibly user-friendly, and things are constantly getting improved upon, and unlike other DAWs, you don't have to pay hundreds of dollars for each big update. Over the next 6 years, a total of 4 major updates came out, 8, 9, 10, and 11, adding things like Patcher, Performance Mode, Z Game Editor, Control Surface, Effector, New Tone, 64-bit support, and by the time FL Studio 12 came out, the DAW was looking different than ever before. FL Studio 12 is the first version of FL Studio I used, and it holds a special place in my heart, which is kind of funny because on paper, it's the most unremarkable update so far. To this day, if you go to their website, their additions for FL Studio 12 were fixed freeze exporting new stuff, drum synth live, fixed distortion, patcher, fixed hidden latency, plugin scanner, various fixes. Every single one of those is a fix, not an addition. The only thing I can find are some scaling features and 8K resolution, which I'm still years away from ever even thinking about experiencing. I mean, it really does feel like FL Studio was running out of ideas. One of their additions in FL Studio 12.1.1 is literally removed Steinway Grand Instrument. Most of FL Studio 12 was bug fixes. They did end up adding some new things like Razer Chroma support and an FL Studio mobile plugin. However, this version of FL Studio was out for 3 years, and after researching all of the FL Studio updates, it's my opinion that FL Studio 12 is the most underwhelming update ever. And that's not to say that it was bad or the software itself was underwhelming, but it seems like in these few years, the devs were a lot more focused on bug fixes and quality of life features rather than adding big new things that are exciting. FL12 did have a very glossy, polished look that I still enjoy to this day. Making those crappy beats on an old rundown laptop with a trial version of FL Studio still holds a special place in my heart, and that's probably the only reason I have such nostalgia for FL Studio 12. It truly is a testament to how powerful that unlimited free trial is. It certainly hooked me, and if Ableton had an infinite free trial, I would be making a video about them right now. Anyway, throughout the few years that FL12 was out, it did grow to be much more stable, and it wouldn't be long before ImageLine had another huge update up their sleeve. FL Studio 20 is where I believe the current golden age of FL Studio development started. FL Studio 20 finally added audio consolidation, which allows you to quickly take a MIDI track and export it to audio. They added Mac support, with cross-compatibility between Mac and Windows. They added Flex, a fairly decent sample-based synthesizer that's designed to compete with Nexus. They added the ability to export stems in one go, and even the ability to export straight to the cloud. They added 4 new effect plugins, being Destructor, Frequency Splitter, Tuner, and Pitch Shifter, and even added a linear phase mode to parametric EQ too. They added a better denoising algorithm in Edison, and they even added time signatures, which it took them long enough, but hey, better late than never. During this period of time, I would log on what felt like daily to a notification telling me about another new update. It's hard to overstate how many updates were being pumped out, and I can only imagine how hard the devs had to work to keep them coming. That brings us to today. 2023 with FL Studio 21. By far, the biggest and most talked about thing they added to this update was themes, which allow you to customize FL Studio's UI even more than you could before, allowing tons of options to make your DAW look exactly how you want it to. But they didn't stop there. They added multi-language support and browse search and tag features, which is a huge step up when looking for samples and genuinely is one of my favorite quality of life features ever added to the software. They even added 4 new plugins: Luxverb, Multiband Delay, Vintage Phaser, and finally, a new chorus. It's absolutely amazing that 20 plus years later, FL Studio is churning out updates on a regular basis, and still manages to add big new features fairly often. It goes to show how the dedication and hard work of a relatively small team can result in something amazing, especially when refined rigorously through user feedback. This may not be the reason I started using FL Studio, but it's the reason that I continue to use FL Studio. The history of ImageLine is an amazing one. From financial applications to adult knockoffs of Tetris, ImageLine and the people associated have done a lot over the past few decades, but nothing, I don't believe, as powerful as FL Studio. This video is supposed to be over right now, but it's not, because I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you made it this far in the video, that means the world to me. This took literally weeks of researching and way longer than I'm prepared to admit to edit. So if you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't like it and for some reason you're still watching, leave a dislike. But anyway, before I go, I just want to get a few more seconds of watch time out of the few of you who are asleep right now and letting autoplay do its thing.